and bringing a sense of comfort and home to an almost unimaginable circumstance. Yet, when these brave K-9 heroes retire, they're not always given the same treatment as our military VIPs, and are too often left overseas. American Humane works to bring home these valiant dogs and reunite them with the people who mean the most to them, their handlers, so they can enjoy happy, healthy, well-deserved retirements. To learn how you can help America's four-footed heroes, visit AmericanHumane.org.
When facts matter, you turn to WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk.
A fair balance where the facts come out.
Real news, real talk.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. 4 people are in serious condition after a celebration turned into a nightmare following Liverpool's Premier League championship win.
British police have said an incident in which a minivan hit crowds celebrating Liverpool's soccer victory is not being treated as terrorism. Merseyside police said a 53-year-old man, believed to be the driver, has been arrested and they're not looking for anyone else. Authorities say 27 people were taken to the hospital, with 2 suffering serious injuries, and another 20 people were treated at the scene for minor injuries. At least 4 children were injured. Deputy Chief Constable Jenny Sims from Merseyside Police said the incident came at a happy moment for Liverpool.
This had been a joyous day in Liverpool, with hundreds of thousands of people lining the streets to celebrate Liverpool Football Club's victory parade.
The crash happened at the end of the team's bus parade through the city after winning the Soccer Premier League this season. Karen Shamas, London.
A huge explosion rocked a chemical plant in China's eastern Shandong province around noon on Tuesday. State broadcaster CCTV says the incident happened at the Gaomi Yudeo chemical company located in the industrial park of Weifan. Rescuers have been dispatched to the scene and authorities have yet to announce if there are any casualties. AP correspondent Haya Panjwani reports on the escapees from a Louisiana jail earlier this month.
Authorities say they've captured 3 more of the 10 escapees who broke out of a Louisiana jail earlier this month. One of the men was arrested in Baton Rouge by local police, while 2 others were arrested in Walker County, Texas. That's according to a social media post from Louisiana State Police. 2 more inmates remain on the lam. Authorities have been scouring New Orleans for the men after they escaped in a May 16 jailbreak. The men yanked open a faulty cell door inside a jail, squeezed through a hole behind a toilet, and scaled a barbed wire fence as they fled into the coverage of darkness.
This is AP News. Britain's King Charles III is in Canada. He'll be delivering what's called the Speech from the Throne, where he'll outline new Prime Minister Mark Carney's government priorities. President Trump's repeated remarks that Canada become the 51st state prompted Carney to invite Charles to give the speech. This year's Indianapolis 500 had the most TV viewers in nearly 2 decades.
Sunday's Indy 500 on Fox had its biggest television audience in 17 years. Nielsen says the race averaged just over 7 million viewers. That's a 40% increase from last year when the race was on NBC. The number of viewers peaked at just under 8.5 million for the race's conclusion. This is only the second time since 2001 that the Indianapolis 500 has outdrawn the Daytona 500. That race, run in February, averaged 6.75 million viewers, but was delayed twice by rain. I'm Mike Hempen.
And I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few spotty areas of drizzle at times here for today with cloudy skies, a high in the upper 60s. Winds out of the northeast around 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 20. Then for tonight, a chance for some rain late, cloudy, a low near 54. By Wednesday, a chance for rain showers, cloudy, high of 63 degrees. Then Thursday, a slight chance for rain late, a high of 71. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 54.
I didn't ask to be thrown in the streets with nowhere to go, but I did ask for help, and Covenant House was there for me.
1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year. For these kids who didn't ask to be put in this unthinkable situation, Covenant House is there, providing hot meals, a safe place to sleep, medical care, and love.
They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
To learn more, go to safeplacetosleep.org today.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Monday morning, progressives, and welcome to the Tuesday morning. I'm sorry. I knew I was going to, well, I didn't know. I was like, don't do that. Good Tuesday morning, progressives, and welcome to the May 27th. See, I got the day right. May 27, 2025 edition of Choose Views. It is Tuesday morning. See, that's what happens in those 3-day holiday weekends. But, we're back here in our little capsule. 773-763-9278 is the Credo mobile phone and text line. Check us out there. Give us a call. Send us a text. Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. Most definitely email me at richard@WCPT820.com. Catch me on Substack as well. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. There you can get the short version and long versions of Choose Views, Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. Most definitely a great place to be is also heartlandsignal.com. It is our digital platform. But let's get things started right off with some check out this, progressives.
Accuse me and my colleagues over here of ignoring the Constitution. And if that were true, that'd be a very serious matter. So I did want to just inquire as to what exactly the accusation is. So I'll happily yield to the gentlewoman from Texas if she'd like to respond. Do you believe that someone who is snuck into our country, entered the United States illegally, that the due process requirements for that individual are the same as they are for a U.S. citizen?
I thought the question was for me, but it seems like the lawyers on this side or just my entire team knows the answer.
Mr. Chairman?
Per the Constitution, yes, if you are on our soil, you are guaranteed due process. And the fact that there's even a question is why we are struggling right now. In addition to an additional issue that I have is the executive order that was signed by the president that seemed to get rid of birthright citizenship, which also is laid out in the Constitution, which is why even the most conservative judges have ruled against. There is no one that has ruled that that was okay.
Okay, thank you.
One of the best parts of that, Henry, is the laughing that comes from her colleagues within 5 seconds of the question coming from this fairly meaty. This is what gets a lot of people frustrated, particularly black folks and other people of color, the LGBTQ community, women in general. Is this white dude, this mediocre dude, doesn't know, Henry? How could he? He didn't even know. And Jasmine Crockett can go at 90 miles an hour with what comes out of her wonderful brain, body, soul, and mouth. She can go at 90 miles an hour in a heartbeat. But she literally slowed the universe down like she was talking to a 5-year-old about why you don't put your hand on the hot stove after mom and daddy told you don't do it. Or Uncle Henry told you don't do it. Or Uncle Richard told you don't do it. She slowed the universe down and said, now look, let me help you out here. I don't want you to get further embarrassed. But the fact that the district that he's from elected him, and now he's showing his mediocrity. This is what frustrates people when we have this conversation around DEI. How does this dude get to be elected to a member of Congress? Well, it's because of his district. So, I mean, I'm not going to shame the district because I could, but I won't do that in the essence of trying to play fair. They elected him. That's who they got. But that's who they got. Okay. So, meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett's district got that. They got her. Because she made it clear. Listen, how do you, the fact that she said that you would even ask the question, the premise that you would even ask the question, does a person on our soil get due process? It's enshrined in the Constitution. So this is what we're dealing with, folks. They have, in many, many districts and states when it comes to senators and on a national level and on a state level, we have a lot of people that are just standing on their sort of arrogance or ignorance and arrogance combined, which is a dangerous combination, to even ask the question in the first place. But I'm so happy and proud to see a woman like Jasmine Crockett just giving him the business, but in a way that would allow the 5-year-old to get the message that we told you don't touch the hot stove. Uncle Henry said, don't go out in the backyard because it's raining out there. Don't even go out with an umbrella because you're going to drag dirt back in the house. So, it's just that kind of stuff that I see these things and I just go, wow. Wow, wow, wow. All right, we're going to hit you with another. Well, let's hit some Choose Views news when we come back from this and come back from the break. There's a clip that we played last week that a number of people said, Richard, can you play that again? That really got me fired up. And then we'll talk about what we want you to be doing in that space. But for now, I want to let you know what's happening with today's show. On today's show, we have, oh my goodness, we've got Dante King, author and professor, Jordan Wood, candidate for U.S. Senate versus who? Susan Collins. I think you guys will appreciate that. We'll be taking your calls as well. But for now, Choose Views News weekly one-on-ones can be a little bit of overkill. Are the weekly one-on-one meetings between managers and their direct reports they can be mutually advantageous, especially when they create space for feedback that flows both directions. But one-on-ones can become cumbersome or even redundant in the face of nearly constant contact via modern workspace collaboration tools. When that's the case, a new report from Bloomberg suggests that there may be better alternatives, like daily rapport building, on-the-spot feedback, and open-door policy for any impromptu issues that arise. So there you go. Just thought you guys might like to know that, because a lot of people are concerned right now about, am I going to have to go back to the office? How much am I going to be able to continue to work from home, and the balance of that. So I found that to be an interesting little piece. Firms are pouncing on the 90-day truce, Henry. Companies nationwide are capitalizing on the 90-day pause in the U.S. and China trade war, ramping up production and rearranging canceled orders at breakneck speed to take advantage of the short reprieve. Container shipments from the U.S. from China have doubled since the truce was announced, per Wall Street Journal, equating to 2.2 million 20-foot boxes. The race is on now for importers to secure limited space and freight ships amid decreasing sailings. All right, on this conversation around how bosses are looking at this back to work. This is a really big conversation right now. Your boss may recognize that taking the time to unplug and silence your Slack notifications during time off will make you more energized and productive when you return to work. But according to a recent study, that doesn't mean they won't unconsciously perceive you and your promotability negatively for doing so. How about that one? Describing the phenomenon as the detached paradox. The authors note that managers often, quote, value visibility and responsiveness as a proxy for dedication. We'll see. Gen Z is leading the return to the office trend. Many ambitious Gen Z professionals are embracing return to office mandates, according to CNBC. A recent study from real estate firm JLL found that young workers under 24 now average 3 days per week in office, outpacing all other age groups. A very interesting bit there. And a little bit of a deal for flight attendants. A tentative labor agreement was reached between United Airlines and its 28,000 flight attendants, according to their union. The deal includes higher compensation and retroactive pay. The Association of Flight Attendants, CWA, said, resulting in a 40% financial gain for the flight attendants in the contract's first year. Way to go, flight attendants. And a little bit of anxiety is still holding around holiday travel, with Memorial Day being the kickoff weekend. U.S. Flyers this Memorial Day weekend said recent headlines about safety scares and air traffic control glitches at major airports are worrying those who did fly and those who intend to fly through the course of the summer. Meanwhile, the FAA expects record high air travel between this past holiday weekend and through the course of the rest of this week. Alrighty, and this is one that I found right on point, and that is that a judge blocks Harvard's student ban. A federal judge in Boston temporarily blocked the Trump administration's move to ban foreign students from enrolling at Harvard University last Friday, shortly after the school filed a lawsuit against the measure. The Department of Homeland Security declared on Thursday last week that Harvard can, quote, no longer enroll foreign students, and existing foreign students must transfer or lose their legal status. The order by Judge Allison Burroughs prevents the DHS revocation from taking effect until a court has held a hearing. Harvard President Alan Garber said the administration's, quote, unlawful action imperils the future of thousands of students and is going to cause a massive brain drain. Because if they're going to do it to Harvard, they're going to try to do it other places. All right, guys, we just came out from Memorial Day weekend. That means it's Tuesday, not Monday, according to me. I hope you guys had a safe weekend. I hope everybody was able to go and do what they needed to do, get back home, get to where you got to get to today, and all that good stuff. So we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about some upcoming events, and we've got some great guests with us today. The number, of course, is our Credo mobile phone and text line, 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-708-3091. 800-708-3091. 800-708-3091. That's 800-708-3091.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
It's Choose View with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey, Progressives, welcome back to the show. 773-763-9278 is our Credo mobile phone and text line. Today on Live, Local, and Progressive, Joan is back after the 3-day weekend with journalist Chris Burry and Rex Hupke. Live, Local, and Progressive, 2 to 5 p.m. Central here on WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk for 20 years. That's Joan Esposito. And tonight, driving it home, Patty Vasquez will be joined by Nathan Taylor of Election Truth Alliance. He has some interesting 2024 presidential vote analysis from North Carolina and Pennsylvania to share. And Appleton radio host Ben Kamenos with a Wisconsin update, driving it home with Patty Vasquez. Weekdays, 5 to 7 p.m. here on WCPT, Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And on tomorrow's show, we'll have our Choose Views regular Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63, and Illinois State Senator Lakeisha Collins will be with us. So there you go. Yeah, guys, I hope everybody had a good, safe Memorial Day weekend and were able to participate in all the things that it means to you. And hopefully you were able to have a couple of good bites of food and hang out with some family and friends and do something different that you haven't done in a while. And maybe some things you do every Memorial Day, but you're able to do it safely and have a good time in that process. Got a couple of current items we're going to chat about today, and it's going to kind of revolve around the this budget bill, and going to revolve around the performance this weekend of that dude known as Donald Trump. At West Point. But for now, we've had a number of people that said, "Hey, Richard, we want to hear that clip again from last week." So we want to hit you guys with this one more time, and then I have a reminder or a homework assignment for everybody. But this is the clip that folks asked about from last week from Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
In this, you are to direct your comments to the chair.
Mr. Speaker, you know what's interesting is that every time I've come on this floor, I can use sharp language. He can use sharp language. You choose to admonish me. I don't work for you, sir. I work for the American people.
I understand. House will be in order.
They need to be reminded. The Republicans, the GOP, the maggots, whatever, all need to be reminded that, and Dems need to be reminded of themselves, remind themselves that they work for the American people. They work for their constituencies. They do not work for the Speaker of any particular committee or the Speaker of the House or any other Republicans that are in leadership roles in the Senate. All of them have to recognize that and have to say it proudly and loudly. It should be, like I said last week, the first thing that comes out of their mouth at a press conference. We don't work for the Republican Party or any member that's head of a committee. We work for you, the American people, and that should be clear to that should be made clear by every single elected official. Last week, I played that clip. Lots of folks said, "Hey, can we hear that again?" And as a reminder, we wanted to bring that one to you. My reminder, my homework assignment that I wanted to share with you guys or give you guys again is with this bill being on the precipice of passing, or at least certainly now being with the Senate, this big, beautiful, ugly, disgusting bill. I think it's important that progressives call their senators, call your governors, call your lieutenant governors, call your AGs. But you can certainly, reach the Capitol switchboard by calling 202-224-3121. And I remind you guys of that because it is something that you can do to let the folks, our elected officials across the board, both parties know, specifically now, or especially now that the bill is going to the Senate. No, the answer is no. They can retrofit it. There's a lot that they can do. One of them is pulling out certain things and making the changes that they need to make. But the most important thing is that bill does not make it to Donald Trump's desk. That it not only can it not happen, it should not happen. We've heard the numbers. I read the numbers last week. The big three, the big four categories. But it's the stuff that they're sneaking in, like we said. And we played last week one of the clips about sneaking in information, tax credit on tanning beds, and the list goes on. We could take up a week of time going through different parts of the bill, and maybe we should do that. I don't know. However, I want you guys to be somewhat empowered anywhere in the country to call the Capitol switchboard. And again, that number is 202-224-3121. Make the call. So over the weekend, Orange Donnie made a fool of himself, which is nothing new. But I want to ask you guys a question. Let me get this. There we go. It's longer than my arm could reach. This is something that popped into my brain over the weekend, and you guys have come to know me now. My brain can go do some crazy stuff. And one of the things that it did is I went down this path because I saw something country. and specifically dealings when it comes to this most recent, the conversation around the plane. And I know people say, let's stop talking about the plane, let's talk about policy. And I agree with that. And we need to talk about not the literal plane, but what it represents in terms of the lack of policy due to the fact that Trump is not a policy maker. He doesn't believe in policy. He believes in his authoritarian, I say it should be done this way. I sign an executive order. That's how it should be done. It's like he's signing the closing documents of a real estate contract. It doesn't work that way because they are executive orders. That's why this bill has to be fought, because the executive orders can be reversed. The damage is going to be the bigger issue. The literal order itself, we can change that. That's why we have to stay at work, not get to work. We have to stay at work right now. But one of the things that popped into my head this weekend, and I was trying to figure out, like, if there's even an answer to this question. And a lot of times people will go, well, Trump's doing this, Trump's doing that, and he's, overseas doing this and doing that in different deals. And what popped into my brain is, why does if he's building or getting these putting these deals together, if you want to call it that, with foreign leaders about building and developing in other countries. Okay, and you guys have, you guys are smart enough to understand what I'm talking about. But one of the things that popped into my brain was, why do they keep building, resorts in foreign countries instead of in red states? I'm legitimately curious. Nobody stopped. This is like a question. Think about that, Henry. And the journalists are missing this. Everybody's so caught up in this. We should be. The plane and all this other garbage that he's doing. And the list goes on. The meme coin, whatever. It's all of these things are being either funded or partnered with somebody from outside of the United States of America. And to whatever extent they are criminal or certainly unethical or push the ethical boundaries, I want to ask a different question. And that is, why is Trump, his family, his whatever, not developing projects in the United States, specifically the red states? And more importantly, why are the leaders in those states, the governors of the red states, not asking him, hey, Donald, why aren't you, like, for example, Louisiana, I know that, let me just put it this way. We can get into the nitty gritty later. There are coastline states that are red states in the Gulf of Mexico. Alabama, right? Louisiana, right? Texas, was that part of the Gulf, and the western part, depending on how you look at it. But Florida. Why is he not developing along the coast down there? Is he a believer in climate change, and he realizes that could be those could be gone with the bad weather pattern? Maybe he is an actual believer in the climate, the impacts of global warming, and that's why he's not doing it. But why is he not building in the red states, when we had this conversation? And more importantly, I could ask this question all day long. Why are the red state governors and the lieutenant governors in red states, or AGs, or the citizens who are PO'd about jobs this, jobs that, Democrats stink because they forgot about the everyday man and woman. But your boy, Donald, isn't building in red states. You can't tell me there's not land available in the Gulf states, Gulf of Mexico states. You can't tell me that in the Carolinas that there's not you can't build, sort of oceanfront or waterfront properties. You can't tell me that in some of the big red states in terms of territory, like in Montana, that you could not develop, a great golf course there, and the list goes on. What about Ohio, Midwestern state? Why isn't Donald using his quote unquote largesse and deal making and art of the deal, put something together along the coast, along in the Cleveland area. You know, that's waterfront, and yes, it's northern. I get that, but if you want to take a northern state that's red, i.e. Cleveland, why? And why are the people in those states not being and moaning? Being is my word for the B-I-T, that word. Why aren't they whining and moaning about that? Donald, how come and why are the governors of those states not saying, hey, man, forget about building something in Dubai? The reason largely is going to do with the fact of access to U.S. banking money. That's part of it. At the same time, he's not even trying. And his family's not even trying. And that, to me, is where this whole conversation around bringing jobs back to the U.S. and manufacturing jobs and this, that, and the other is a bunch of malarkey. Because rather than doing deals with foreign countries that are going to benefit his pocket, why not do a deal with the state of Louisiana? Would seem like a righteous thing to do since they voted for you. We can call him the hypocrite in chief. Because he rarely practices what he preaches. And in this particular space, definitely not. All right, guys, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to talk some more about some of the craziness coming out of our crazy politicians in Washington and other areas as well. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
WCPT 20th Anniversary Replay 2015.
Hey, welcome back to Out Chicago. We're talking about hair. And you know whose hair is always going to be on topic?
Hillary.
Yes, Hillary Clinton. Just because she's a lady, we got to talk about how old she is, what she looks like, and what she's wearing.
Never talk about men's hair.
We don't do that at all. But but she threw her hat into the ring officially, announcing that she will be running for president in 2016. I say yay.
Scott and I love her.
That is awesome. I want her to actually be the Khaleesi. I wanted to have her just unleash all over Congress. I just want her to unleash her dragons.
She ain't gonna put up with any, what?
No. Those memes that were running around of her, on her BlackBerry, the "I got this" meme. That right there is enough reason to vote for her.
That's right.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few spotty areas of drizzle at times here for today with cloudy skies, a high in the upper 60s. Winds out of the northeast around 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 20. Then for tonight, a chance for some rain, late cloudy, a low near 54. By Wednesday, a chance for rain showers, cloudy, high of 63 degrees. Then Thursday, a slight chance for rain, late, a high of 71. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 56.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. I do want to hear from you, and that's our Credo mobile phone and text line, by the way. I do want to hear from you when it comes to my question. Why do you think that is? I mean, genuinely. Why do you think that Donald Trump is not, why he's being hypocritical in this, let's develop and build and do deals with other countries that are going to benefit he and his family, golf courses and resorts and whatever else is going on and meme coin development and this, that, and the other. Why not build right here in the U.S.? Why not have those projects right here in the U.S.? But I'm curious what you guys have to say about that. I'm curious what your thoughts are. And so rather than bringing money to other nations, bring money to the United States of America. But there you go. So let's see. Okay, yeah. We were talking a little bit about the way in which Donald embarrassed himself and the nation and others this weekend during the this West Point graduation ceremony that has traditionally been one of the most amazing and spectacular, full of pomp and circumstance events. And this fool wears a MAGA cap to this event, Henry. I mean, wow. That's and he can get away with it because he's, quote, the commander-in-chief, in West Point, as our other military institutions and installations are under the, the guise, the handle of the commander-in-chief. So he can get away with it. But it was it was a disgusting look. I know you guys saw it. That's the thing about a 3-day weekend. We all get to pick up and see so many different things, some of which we don't want to see and some of which we kind of have to see to stay, plugged in. But that was a terrible display. And we put together a clip for you guys that I think that a lot of people who have family that served in the military may have gone to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, may have been a graduate of the work done down at Quantico in terms of the Marines, and or went to West Point. So we have a clip from a descendant of someone who actually did go to West Point, talking about her observations. And before we play it, Henry, did we catch the last? We did catch that. Okay, there's a bleep at the end. I thought. Let me just make sure, because I sometimes forget to let Henry and Devin know there's some cuss words in here, so they've got to go through and do the editing. But let's play that one for him, Henry.
If you saw Trump's commencement speech to West Point today, then I don't need to tell you how deranged and incoherent it was. He went on some bizarre tangent about trophy wives, which got me thinking about how women have only been welcome at West Point since the 70s. And there was a time in 2008 when they wanted to change the lyrics to the alma mater to make it more gender inclusive. The lyric was thine sons, and they wanted to change it to thine own to be more inclusive. My grandpa went to West Point. He graduated in January of 1943. He graduated early to go literally fight fascism and fight Nazis. And I can say without a doubt that he would be horrified by what is happening to his beloved country right now. And when Trump was talking about trophy wives, it just got me thinking about that song lyric change, because it was in 2008. I remember specifically talking to my grandpa about it. And he was like, I don't know what the big deal is. I support this name change because those little girls, he probably said little girls, are doing the same things that all the boys are doing. They're fighting, they're dying, they're et cetera, et cetera. So he was supportive of that. And I love him for that. And I'm proud of him for that. And so many other things.
Yeah, we faded out she gave Donald Trump the middle finger at the end of that clip, but we had Henry had to edit that out for us so that you guys didn't. Those of you who were partially awake didn't go, "What the heck just happened?" So what's the message here? This is a dude who is just he's everything he touches, every place he goes, there is an element of chaos and craziness that goes along with it. And I want the people in the red states to answer this question that are red state leaders. Why isn't your boy building and designing and making, those states better and bringing those economies, bringing those dollars to those economies? I've got we have an interesting other clip that rides along with my question. When I thought about this, I said, I've got to find something out there that speaks to this at least a little bit. And from California is Representative Mike Levin, who talks about this thing that I'm referring to as partisan budgeting. And why is that relevant? It's in my mind, it's because of the shift in dollars, a shift. And Representative Ted Lieu talked about this right after the fires the horrible fires that we saw earlier in the year in Southern California, specifically the Palisades area and other communities surrounding there. But about this reallocation and shifting of dollars to different parts of the country. And so Trump's not developing or looking at developing anything in the red states, which would be great for development. But what he is doing, or what the administration is trying to do now, is come up with ways, and Senator Levin kind of leans into this, and I'll let you guys hear it, and we'll talk about it, and then we're going to grab a couple calls on the backside of this clip.
I find your testimony to be completely unbelievable. I was shocked when I saw the Corps released its fiscal 25 work plan last week, which zeroed out funding for critical construction projects in California. Simply does not make sense that the most populous state in the country should receive $0 for construction work. And this isn't limited to California. In total, the so-called blue states saw a reduction of nearly $500 million, while the so-called red states saw an increase of $257 million. Do you have any other possible explanation for the way the administration wants to distribute these funds other than partisanship?
They wanted to prioritize life safety, flooding, and American prosperity.
And you think all of the projects in California, Washington, other states don't do that?
It's not my judgment to make. That was what they prioritized within the funds that they had discretion to allocate.
Right. General, would you care to comment on this?
I'd go with Ms. Colosimo's
Let me guess,
answer.
no, you don't want to comment on this. Mr. Cameron, you want to comment on this?
Sir, I've gotten no insight at all into the Corps' budgetary process. I can tell you at Interior, the Bureau of Reclamation, we try to invest our dollars where we can manage, produce the greatest benefit and the greatest public safety.
Based on the technical and the engineering aspects of these projects, do you feel that that has been done? That taking money, $250 million away from the so-called blue states, giving it to the so-called red states, do you think that that's consistent with solid engineering and technical work that's been done on these projects? Do you really believe that, Ms. Colosimo?
I believe all the projects put forth are good projects.
That's not what I asked.
What I said was I believe they were all good projects. How they stack against the projects one by one is difficult to answer in one soundbite.
Well, you have 33 seconds.
I do believe they represent the priority of the administration of life safety, flooding, and coastal and inland
You already
ports.
said that. Try again.
That's what I believe.
Okay, you think that this was all on the level. You don't think there's any partisanship
I
at
believe
all?
they had to make trade-offs that I was not privy to.
Right, and those trade-offs were of a partisan nature, weren't they?
I don't believe they were partisan, but that's their decision.
You
to
don't
make.
believe they were partisan. So what's the explanation if it's not partisanship?
It's the priorities they placed that were different than priorities than other projects. You would have to ask them directly.
I'm out of time, but I find your testimony to be completely unbelievable. Thank you.
What I found interesting there is you'd have to ask them directly. Well, then you shouldn't be in the job. Whenever that's the thing, Henry. When I see these folks that are part of the administration and are heads of departments or whatever their role is in front of Congress, and they are asked questions and they defer to, you'd have to ask them as their way of answering the question, or to redirect the question to something else. They shouldn't be in the job. Part of their job, in addition to doing the job, is knowing that you're going to, at some point, potentially at some point, have to sit in front of a committee in Congress, and they're sworn in. So to not answer the question, to me, is lying by default. And to say you'd have to ask them, I would rather hear them say, I don't know. I don't know the answer to your question. And as embarrassing as that is for me, I don't know the answer. This is what they told me. This is what they directed me to do. And otherwise, then if you don't, I believe, if you don't take that position in your answer, then you are advocating for what it is that they gave you to do. Either say, I don't know the answer to your question, or say that this is what I've been instructed to do. This is what the outline, the requirements of my job require me to do. Irrespective of my belief, partisan or not, this is what the job is. So this is what I'm supposed to do. Because too many times when I hear that, I just think, well, then you shouldn't be in the job. There's somebody else that's more capable of doing the work. But then this goes back to, this is a part of Project 2025. And we forget sometimes, and I don't say we forget, it can be forgotten, that one of the things that Project 2025 wanted to do and is doing is to put people in place that would basically be sycophants. I remember last summer when we were talking about this, last spring, Karen Byrne and I were talking about this every single Friday for months. Taraji P. Hinton brought it out during the BET Awards, and the mainstream media, dragging their behinds, finally started to talk about it in the early part of the summer a little bit, and then it got hotter and hotter as we got closer to the conventions. One of the things that was in Project 2025, is to deplete the amount of federal workers, or to eliminate and replace some 50,000 workers, I believe the number was now, and replace them with loyalists. And those people were loyalists, not to the Constitution or the country, but to this weak A administration. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. There is no two ways about it. And the reason I wanted you guys to hear that clip and why I wanted that to be part of the conversation around where Trump is building and what he's doing or not doing is because now the monies that are coming, the monies that for projects through the, oh my gosh, I just lost it. Not the Department of Energy, but it'll come to me in a second. I promise you it will. But those projects, those construction projects, those building projects, there's those redesign projects, that the funding for that is being stopped and then reallocated to red states. And that, to me, seems a lot like the rewards being paid to the states that were loyalist to Trump's election. So we're going to take a quick break. I almost said something bad. That's why I had to pause and slow down a little bit, like Representative Jasmine Crockett. The number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
This is a WCPT Veteran Minute. Captain Hugh Molzak's love for the sea started after he finished high school, as he served the British Sooners and in 1918 immigrated to the United States. Within 2 years of joining the Marines, Molzak earned his shipping master's certificate, the first African American to do so. In 1921, Molzak was promoted to the rank of captain. In 1942, the SS Booker T. Washington, the first ship to be named after an African American, was created, and Molzak was offered the position of captain, but he turned it down at first as the Marines did not want to have an integrated crew. Molzak stood firm on his beliefs, stating, "Under no circumstances will I command a Jim Crow," and Molzak became the first African American captain of the first ever integrated crew. Under Captain Molzak, over 18,000 troops were sent to the European warfront, and ships carrying tanks, aircrafts, and ammunition to United States troops in World War II. This has been a WCPT Veteran Minute.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
You're listening to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk.
Hey, progressive, welcome back to the show. 773-763-9278 is our Credo mobile phone and text line. And shout out to 312 and to 209, and shout out to Lois for some quick texts you guys have sent me this morning. What I was trying to say, what it was stuck in my brain and couldn't jump out my mouth, was Army Corps of Engineers, projects that they're involved in and working on in different states. And meanwhile, that while this is taking place, FEMA is not helping the states that are in need, that need it based on weather patterns. Because what is Donald Trump doing? He's lying and saying he had a deal to do with China, and rather than shaking the hands of the men and women at West Point, he ended up actually playing golf. Did y'all see that? So he lied. He lied again. All right, Henry, let's grab a quick call. Let's go to our friend Leo down in South Carolina, a coastal state. What's going on, Leo? Welcome to the show.
How you doing, sir?
Good.
I just wanted to call in regards to your question. Why is Trump building towers and golf courses everywhere but the U.S.? To me, he's phoning in the presidency. He's looking out for the Trump business while Stephen Miller is running the country. What does scare me, though, is Republicans are governing as if they've already won the midterms. they're governing as if they're not going to give it up, and that I find that very concerning. The things they're doing, like you said, they're not helping out their own people.
Yeah.
The Trump administration claims to be America first, but then we can bring in El Chapo's family and let's call them oligarch refugees from South Africa, and even the most maggots are not that doesn't ring true with America first.
Nope.
So none of this makes sense to me, except for we're not going to have a fair election.
And that's a concern about some of the things that might be in this bill, believe it or not, Leo. That there are concerns that in the bill there are some ways to redesign the allocation of money, which then doesn't break the law. It changes the law so that Congress, led by the Republicans right now for the next year and a half, coming up on this fall for a year, is going to cede power to the president to really get into this unitary executive conversation. So that's the other reason why I've been, frankly, bugging everybody about calling the Capitol switchboard and leaning into all senators, not just the ones from the state that one happens to be a resident of. But I hear you, and I'm not going to just say back to you, oh, no, Leo, that will never happen in terms of the midterms. I am not that foolish to say that would never happen, because
I can't say that anymore.
Right. I hear what you're saying, and it's crossed my mind every now and again. And when I read this report over the weekend about the potentiality of the things that are inside of this bill, really shifting that power by Congress essentially ceding, they are putting language deep in the bill based on how Project 2025's authors have done it, that cede power of Congress to the president when it comes to the budget. And what that means then is that it could indirectly impact the elections, because then the funding that goes forward and then the allocation of the federal election commission changes everything. So I'm not stupid enough or silly enough to go, nah, Leo, that would never happen. But what can happen is this. I say all that to say this. If voters get off their behinds and stop blaming Democrats for not talking to them just the right way and saying things just the right way and making it interesting to wanting to come out and vote. If that 36% of the folks that did not vote decide to vote, because we can't count on Republican voters to switch, because we already saw that that's not a working plan necessarily. They might be upset. I saw this clip that we may bring to you this week of a guy who's a farmer. They got ticked off about, he was all behind MAGA and Trump, and then stuff started leaving in terms of benefits and resources, and he got upset about it, started complaining about it like other people have, and as things have started to come back, he's back on the MAGA train again. So I can't trust that Republican voters are going to necessarily be the ones that come to the table to try to fix this. I mean, what are your thoughts there, being that you're in South Carolina?
I've got a very pessimistic view of the future. Being from South Carolina and seeing not only how deep the cult goes, but also how disconnected everyone else is. So you're either where I'm at, you're either deeply into this cult and, dear Lord and Savior Donald Trump can do no wrong, or this is just the way it is. There's nothing you can do about it. That's been everything I've seen, at least as long as I've been in the South. How to get those people off the couch, or not even that. Like, I don't mean to call them lazy or anything like that. Just invested in what, and the fact that we are the government. It's not Republicans and Democrats. It's us. Was it? I think it might have been Eisenhower during civil rights. He said to Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement, like, I'm with you. Now get out on the streets and make me do it. Mm-hmm. And that's what the American people are missing. And here's where I'm not going to say, we can't complain about the Democrats. Lifelong Democrat, not real happy about it, but it's the best option we got. But the problem is, what have they done for us? Keep in mind, they didn't codify Roe v. Wade. They didn't codify voting rights. So we've got to get, instead of backing the Democrats, back the Democrats that are backing you. Like, get behind Bernie, get behind AOC, get behind Jasmine Crockett, and look at your local people. There are some people saying and doing some great things, and if the people in power aren't willing to do the job, then we need to start propping up the ones below them.
I agree with that, but I'll take a little bit of issue with the first part of what you said in terms of codifying voting rights. It wasn't the Democrats didn't do it. It was that but let's be honest, in terms of the numbers in Congress that blocked it, that were Republicans. I mean, that's the other part of this. Now, structurally, there are things that the previous two Democratic administrations, in reverse order, Biden and Obama, could have done differently. But when I say that, let me be clear about this so that nobody misunderstands me. And I know I'll probably have to come back and clean this up again. I am not saying, and never have I said, that we cannot criticize Democrats. What I am saying clearly and full-throatedly to anybody, period, is we should encourage and push them to move forward.
Absolutely.
And that includes all Democrats. That includes the ones that have been there for a minute, the ones that have been there for a short period of time, and those that are ascending to be there. That is, we've got to get off of this. We got to go after Democrats all the time. Doggone it, I'm tired of us doing that when it doesn't allow us to go after Republicans. So one guy is directly poisoning you, and the other guy is trying to. And we have to go after. And I'm not, Leo. Please understand. I'm not coming after you with this. I'm saying across the board, we can do both. We can be critical of what Democrats are not doing well enough that need to be done better. At the same time, we have to push them to make sure that they are getting it done. And if it means changing to other people who are running that are going to get it done, I'm with that. I understand that. But we have to remember that if we don't continue to put the heat to Republicans, they're going to get away with the stuff that they're getting away with. And Democrats as leaders have got to do that too. More people have to be, that are elected currently, have to constantly be on the message about what the Republicans are doing that's harming the country. So it takes a multiple effort.
I agree with that sentiment. The problem is, if you're a farmer, if you got chickens, expect a fox to do, right? Like you expect a fox to go after your chickens. So, like, I blame Republicans, but on the other hand, here's where I love what your friend Eric used to say. Republicans deliver for their people. Republicans tell you what they stand for, and they do it. Now, Republicans don't tell their people that their policies are going to kill them. So, and they're sly, they're foxes, but like, you can't fault the fox for being a fox. Like, right. Yes, are the Republicans poisoning us? Yes, but they said they were going to. So,
and that's
the only thing I can think to do with Republicans is remind them, this is what you voted for, bud.
Right.
You know, they may have told you they weren't going to go for Medicare and Social Security.
This is where I say we have to be mindful of the language that we're using. So let me reel back a little bit. Democratic elected officials and Republican elected officials, and then voters, Democratic voters and Republican voters. What we have to do is remind our Democratic elected officials that they've got to push harder and fight harder against Republican elected officials, and then use the narrative that you just spoke of to Republican voters. This is what they said they were going to do. They delivered on harming you. So there's a little bit of to kind of clean this up for you and me, that we both have to, not you and me, but all of us that are talking about this and trying to find our way forward. We have to remember that when we direct a message that we're talking to the elected officials, that they have to do more, but the people who are participating in the process, they've got to get in the game. And so, because the Republicans did deliver on their lies. They did deliver on their harm. So I hear you, Leo. Listen, man, we're coming to the top of the hour, and I don't want to ever cut anybody off, but I want to get to the top of the hour. And listen, again, thanks for all that you're doing down in South Carolina. We know how hard you're working and the work that you do as law enforcement and EMT, and we appreciate all of that you're doing. And thanks for the message this morning.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye now. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll be talking with one of the authors and historians and folks that have been with us before about some of the things that are happening with regard to the Department of Justice. The number is 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
Check up on health with Chris Whitting.
You already know that a lack of exercise isn't healthy, but researchers at the University of Utah School of Medicine found that each extra 80 minutes a day of an activity, like sitting at your desk, was associated with a 20% increased likelihood of chronic kidney disease. Dr. Srini Bedu led the study, and he says it's best for workers to take frequent breaks at work.
They should be aware of how long they're sitting, and American Diabetes Association recommends that we should at least be taking a break every 90 minutes. We may even need to be more aggressive than that, and at least every 60 minutes take a break, even for a couple of minutes, walk around. It doesn't need to be that you need to go for a jog or lifting heavy weights. Even getting up and walking around and being active could help.
With Checkup on Health, I'm Chris Whitting.
At Tropical Smoothie Cafe, summer is our season, and we're kicking it off with a free 12-ounce Sunrise Sunset Smoothie for National Flip Flop Day on May 28th from 2 to 7 p.m. Terms and conditions apply.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. AP correspondent Karen Chamas reports on a vote on assisted dying in France's lower house of parliament.
The National Assembly is voting on Tuesday on a bill to allow adults with incurable illness to take lethal medication. The vote comes as public demand grows across Europe for legal end-of-life options. If approved by a majority of lawmakers, the bill will be sent to the Senate for further debate. A team of medical professionals would need to confirm that the patient has a grave and incurable illness at an advanced or terminal stage. They would also need to prove the patient is suffering from intolerable and untreatable pain and is seeking lethal medication of their own free will. To benefit from the newly proposed measure, patients would need to be over 18 and be French citizens or live in France. I'm Karen Chamas.
Gunmen shot and killed a policeman assigned to protect polio workers in southwestern Pakistan Tuesday before fleeing the scene. A local police official said the polio workers escaped unharmed in the attack. No one immediately claimed responsibility for the assault, but suspicion is likely to fall on separatist groups and Pakistani Taliban, who have stepped up attacks on security forces and civilians in recent months. British police have arrested a 53-year-old man after he plowed into a crowd of Liverpool soccer fans. The incident happened Monday as people were celebrating the city's Premier League championship. 47 people were injured, 27 of whom were taken to local hospitals. 4 people are in serious condition. Police say the driver was believed to be the only one involved and the crash was not being investigated as an act of terrorism. European shares have advanced after a mixed session in Asia in quiet trading following the Memorial Day holiday. U.S. futures and European shares have gained after President Trump said he would delay a threatened 50% tariff on goods from the European Union. This is AP News.
AP Sports, I'm Gethin Coolbaugh. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's 40 points, 10 assists, and 9 rebounds helped the Thunder move one win away from their first NBA Finals berth since 2012. After a 128-126 Game 4 win over the Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals.
Stuff we've dreamt about for our whole lives, and it's crazy that it's come to fruition.
Stanley Cup playoffs, the Hurricanes kept their season alive with a 3-0 Game 4 win to avoid an Eastern Conference Final Series sweep against the Panthers. Logan Stankoven netted the second period winner as Carolina snapped a 15-game skid in the conference finals.
You get your chances, so you got to stay ready and make sure you bear down on them.
Shohei Ohtani hit a leadoff homer in consecutive games for the second time in his career in the Dodgers 7-2 win at Cleveland, and Fever star Caitlin Clark will miss at least 2 weeks with a left quad strain. Gethin Coolbaugh, AP Sports.
And I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few spotty areas of drizzle at times here for today with cloudy skies, a high in the upper 60s. Winds out of the northeast around 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 20. Then for tonight, a chance for some rain, late cloudy, a low near 54. By Wednesday, a chance for rain showers, cloudy, high of 63 degrees. Then Thursday, a slight chance for rain, late, a high of 71. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 56.
Progressive knows owning a home can be hard, but not always. Like when you're relaxing on your patio, enjoying a nice, quiet evening. So quiet. Except for the sound of the neighbor's party. Which you said you'd go to if you weren't busy. And your quiet night on the patio, that's not exactly busy, is it? Maybe you should just stay inside. At least Progressive's Home Quote Explorer lets you easily compare rates, so shopping for insurance is the easiest part of owning a home. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and third-party insurers. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
Welcome back to Chew's Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820 AM, where facts matter. Take it away, Richard.
Hey, progressives, welcome back to the show. Appreciate Leo's call earlier, and I want to make it clear. When we get to criticize our leaders, and we also need to do it in a way that's constructive and that's going to move them forward, or else, in my opinion, sometimes it's just whining. What's the solution in your criticism? I want to take a quick moment before we bring on our guest Dante, and I want to remind people there have been many times with Democratic elected officials on a federal level fought to get certain things done, and they didn't have the numbers. We're in that point right now with a huge amount of steam behind the Republican Party because of the fact that the Trump administration is basically right up to the toe line on laws, and the judges are holding the line. The courts are holding the line. That doesn't mean that we don't criticize, and I got to be careful with the word criticize. You know, I hear people say, well, just kick them out if they're not doing a job. Well, pick a fight. You know, you're going to kick out Republicans who are actively causing you harm, or I think we can do both. I think we can criticize, work with our party, push our leaders harder, and drive a truck through the Republicans and what they're not delivering for the people that voted for them. Those who say they voted for certain things. And we know a lot of people voted for this carnage. They voted for the racism, the sexism, the Christian nationalism, and the privilege. We know that lots of people voted for that. There are those who are coming out and yelling and screaming, not because they didn't get, they're being harmed by it. Different conversation. But I'm not, I want to be clear on this. I'm not saying we don't criticize Democratic elected officials. I'm saying that we criticize with a solution to move forward. And just replacing somebody doesn't mean that they're going to do a better job because they're younger chronologically, but no, they don't have the experience in the process. At the same time, that doesn't mean I'm saying that the people who are there that are not getting the job done should stay. We've got to be the ones to call for the balance and the change. And if we have to take the approach that some folks have got to go, then some folks have got to go. But let's get behind our Democratic leaders, all of them, and push them all forward collectively rather than these one-offs of chipping away at our own fabric. I think that's a recipe for disaster. And I don't need to agree with every person that's a Democratic voice about that. When someone says, yeah, but you're just stuck on keeping people in place. No, I'm not. I'm about solutions. If somebody's got to go, replace them. We understand that's part of our, system of improvement, or help them improve. But to just spend our time just constantly, and I caution myself. Let me be the first to raise my hand. I caution myself in that space about, just going after Democrats for what they're not doing. I have to be mindful of that. I'll be the first to tell you in terms of using my phrase, clean up on aisle 7. But the people that are, the people that are coming after it, because we're going to shift a little bit in our conversation about the people that are coming after Mayor Johnson here in the city of Chicago. Listen, I've said this before, and I've said it when he's been on our show. There's things that he can do better. He can speak to the publicly more frequently in a different, more forceful, encouraging way. I've said that to him. I'll say it to him again. because I want him to succeed. Why would I want him to fail? There are people in this city that want Mayor Johnson to fail. Not because he's not doing a good job, but because they just by their nature want him to fail. I don't want him to fail. I want him to succeed. And if I can do anything to help that process, you can darn well believe I'm going to do it. The same thing is true. I want Trump to fail at the harm that he's causing the country. I've said that before. I want him to fail at that because that means the country may have a breathing chance of succeeding and surviving. So I want him to fail in those areas. I want this bill to fail because it's going to harm more people than it's going to help. So I hope I'm clear in that space. All right. Our guest has waited on hold long enough while I had my little rant. We've had this gentleman with us before, professor, author, human resource consultant, and just a dude that kind of knows a little bit about how to make certain things work. And that would be none other than Dante King. Good morning, Dr. King. I know you like that.
Good morning, Richard. It's great to be back with you, and I totally respect what you were saying as far as allowing people to express their opinions about, how they feel about the decisions that leaders are making that are directly affecting and impacting their lives. So I absolutely agree with that.
Well, thank you. I mean, we have to embrace all of that, which is critical, and then find a way to use that to go forward. But we can't just keep, criticizing without a path to go down to make things better for all of the country. And that's the thing that I've been trying to say is we have to do both. Unfortunately, we're at a point where we've got to be strong enough to do both. You've had some comments of late or some observations of late. You saw what happened last week right here in good old Chicago. Mayor Brandon Johnson, the Justice Department, which is investigating him, and we know why they're investigating him. But in this specific sense, they've come after him with regard to his quote unquote not even hiring more black folks, just having the balance of numbers in his administration. And you've had some observations about that, not only just locally, the observations, but also globally in the U.S. when it comes to this conversation around race-based discrimination.
Absolutely. So I think one of the places that I'd like to start in this discussion, as you know, I've written 2 books, one being The 400-Year Holocaust, White America's Legal, Psychopathic, and Sociopathic Black Genocide, and a Revolt Against Critical Race Theory, and also my second book, which I just released in February. It's called Diagnosing Whiteness and Anti-Blackness, White Psychopathology, Collective Psychosis, and Trauma in America. And in my book, I detail a lot of terms that I'm introducing, as well as an evidentiary analysis of the ways that this country was founded, using its institutions. All of its institutions was founded under the auspices of what I term white affirmative action. And there's also a book by a Jewish guy by the name of Ira Katz Nelson that was released, I believe, in about 20 years ago, and it's called When Affirmative Action Was White. And so it talks about all of these welfare programs and benefits that white people received as a result of the notion of citizenship in this country being based upon whiteness, which is enshrined into the Naturalization Act of 1790. Okay, move all that to the side. So what I am detailing or trying to establish a foundation around are the ways in which white people like to project. So this administration is going after Mayor Johnson because, and I talk about white projection in my book, which I define as a core tenet of white psychosis stemming from white paranoia. It is a defense mechanism white people employ to project their undesirable and otherwise unacceptable thoughts, feelings, and impulses onto others rather than accepting them. And so we see in this moment a President Donald Trump who has appointed unqualified, underqualified white people, such as Pete Hegseth, such as Kristi Noem, such as Tulsi Gabbard. And so there is a degree of total denial and also hypocrisy in the ways in which they are attempting to suggest and now go after Mayor Johnson, I think is absolutely absurd to deny. And I know this personally as a human resources management professional, where I have seen throughout my entire career unqualified, underqualified white people be hired for positions be set aside for someone because their neighbor's son just graduated from an institution, someone that they met at a cocktail party who may not be qualified for the position, but because they are networked, they then are provided the opportunity. And again, these questions and this type of what I define in my definition of anti-blackness, hyper-scrutiny, this type of hyper-scrutiny of black people constantly targeting us to criminalize every decision that we make, every position that we hold. It is just absolutely absurd, but it is also debilitating. It's so exhausting to have this constantly happening. And then the what I'm pointing to is that white people never have to follow their own rules that they've made up, that they've established in this society in terms of what it means to be a model, productive, upstanding citizen. So it's just so unfortunate.
We're talking with professor and author and human resources consultant Dante King about this conversation about essentially how the Department of Justice is trying to use the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to say that Mayor Brandon Johnson of the city of Chicago is violating and embarking on race-based discrimination by hiring more black people in his administration. I mean, that's just cutting to the core, cutting to the chase of all of it. And by default saying that he's being a racist mayor by hiring people that, to Dante's point, white employers, white political leaders, white, on and on. We could use a variety of different industries. This professional sports is a great one, where there has been rampant discrimination, where, to Dante's point, in many cases it's been very silently implemented, in other cases it's been overt. But at the end of the day, it has been there, and white male, particularly employers and leaders, haven't been held to account for it. Not just in terms of racial, but also sexual discrimination. So right now, this conversation that's being lobbed at Mayor Johnson is largely because, to your point, they want to criminalize anything that he's doing and saying by saying that he's acting in a way. And I looked at the numbers, and it's about a third of black folks in his administration, white folks in his administration, and non-white Hispanics that are in his administration. It's a pretty even balance in the lower 30s are the last numbers that I saw. And the reason that got highlighted is not because of the balancing out the administration. It's because it's a black mayor that's doing it. Because nobody said a damn thing to Rahm Emanuel about hiring more white men. Nobody said anything to the Dailies about hiring more white folks. But the minute that a black mayor in the third largest city in the country is having a diverse, representative government, which is conversations that so many of these hawks of the Constitution like to use on both, to be honest with you, on both sides of the aisle, then he gets the ire of the Department of Justice. And we know we know they're just directing it toward a black mayor. That's all. At the end of the day, we can fancy language it all day, Dante, but at the end of the day, that's all they're doing.
That's right. And so when we talk about the psychopathology, we're talking about the sickness and illness of white people that I believe is compulsory, that they cannot help themselves when it comes to a whole set of things. But for one, really focusing on black people in a very targeted, persistent manner, unrelenting manner. That is part of the white psychopathology. Another piece of it too is an inability to fully and honestly examine one's own experience and their own collective experience. For example, most white people you speak to have this belief. They hold a belief that I worked really hard to get where I am. And in that very delusional narrative, there is an under-acknowledgement or an absence of an acknowledgement of the people who helped them get there, the people who gave them opportunities. The belief is that I did it all by myself with no mentorship, with no sponsorship, without, people being in their path to open doors for them. And so with that unacknowledgement or lack of acknowledgement, there then is this projection onto other people, that other people have people helping them along the way. That's never happened for me, the white guy or white woman, but that's happened for other people who I have been programmed to believe are they lack competence, they lack intelligence. I have been programmed to believe that white people are the best, that we are supreme in our intellect, our morals, etc., and that other people, especially where black people are concerned, are just never, they could not get through the doors on merit, on our white-based definition of merit, which is why then you could have someone like Kamala Harris, who was the most qualified person who has ever run for the presidency of the United States of America, having worked in all three branches of government, the legislative, judicial, and the executive, and she would still be called a DEI president because, again, we're talking about people who are in denial about themselves, who have these very distorted and delusional beliefs in ideas where other people that they characterize as non-white are concerned. And I think it's just we're at a point in our culture, in our society, where this country is imploding because white people have never addressed themselves. They've never addressed their history. They've never addressed the illness and the sicknesses that they suffer from.
And this is, listen, for those who are listening that their butt cheeks are tightening up because of the way in which, in an unfiltered way, Dante is saying white people, that should probably be something for you to go, okay, maybe I need to think about what's being said here rather than get defensive. So for those of you who are going, oh my God, Richard's driven off the rails. No, it's not. I mean, this is about going, when we look at where we are in this country, I purposely identify racism, sexism, Christian nationalism, specifically white Christian nationalism, and privilege. That's why we are where we are. The privilege blocks people from thinking outside of themselves. I don't have to think about anybody else because I'm privileged enough to not have to do that. The Christian nationalism, that's a months-long conversation, sexism and racism. And I'll point this out currently right now. There's a couple things I wrote down when you were talking about this and how and why we are here as a country today. There are foreign leaders that are from quote-unquote white or European countries that are stepping back and going, what the hell is going on in the United States? And they even see it. They see it because they're able to be outside of it and go, damn, the U.S. has got some serious issues. And the privilege of white Americans doesn't allow them to hear what their ancestral brethren are saying from Europe because of the privilege. And so when you were talking earlier, and I said, and you made this comment about this fever. Toni Morrison was in an interview a few years ago, and basically she made the statement, what does this country have to lean on if for not racism?
That's right. And it's embedded into everything.
And then the other thing that I wrote down that goes back to what you said about this unqualified part of where we have so many people in this administration that are unqualified is because there's this belief system that they are naturally better than anybody else that would be in a position of leadership or power. And rugged individualism. That's how I got here. I did it all on my own. No, you didn't. Go ahead. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Well, but there's also the willingness. White people get to benefit from the willingness of other white people to overlook the mistakes, to overlook the incompetence, to to overlook the lack of judgment when white people are concerned. And so you can have a Pete Hegseth and his administration chatting and sharing, war-related information on a, basic social media app, and that gets overlooked. He still gets to keep his job. Yeah. And so there's also the lack of scrutiny and the willingness to support and go along and cover up each other's messes. And so when we talk about white solidarity, the pathology of white solidarity, we're then talking about this idea that white people are sovereign and can do no wrong. And even if we're willing to admit and or accept that wrongdoing has occurred, we're still willing to go along with it and not hold the person accountable. And so we just have to uncover all of these, the functionality of whiteness, the functionality of anti-blackness, and the ways that these things function every day. And I want to give a quick shout-out to the hundreds of white people, into the thousands, that I've had the opportunity to be in closed session with. Some have attended courses that I've taught at UCSF, the Mayo Clinic. Some have been involved in workshops that I've held, just coming in to work with different organizations. And I want to give a shout-out to these white people because they have admitted openly to me when they have been made comfortable enough, and I've asked a question publicly in these sessions: how many of you have ever gotten a job because you knew someone? And 95 to 99% of them stand up. How many of you have gotten a job multiple times because you knew someone? 95 to 99% of them stand up. How many of you have ever gotten a job that you weren't qualified for, but someone believed in you and gave you an opportunity? 95 to 99% of them have stood up. And so I have gotten, through visual and empirical evidence, white people admitting to me what their lives have been like. Mm-hmm. And none of the in the daily lives of individuals, most of these people do not take time to reflect about the people who have helped them. And that is a part of what I define in my book as white narcissism, white malignant narcissism. Like we have to understand that these are conditions. These are psychopathological conditions that we need to take a time out and step back and really begin to examine for what they are and how they function in our society.
And this is the part, this is the part that's tough, because a lot of people will say this is about, hating on white folks. No, it's not. It's not at all. It's about identifying a big part of how we have gotten here and how we can go about fixing it to make it better. Because a person that, as I said before, Dante, rather than look at this as an attack, it's look at the administration. All you got to do is look at the administration. This is not a black administration of incompetent people or mediocre black folks. Let's just call it as it is. On a federal level.
That's right.
This is an administration of mediocre people who happen to all be white that don't have that. I mean, I went down a list of this over the weekend of the people who were black leaders in our federal government that had attained their jobs because of the education, the military experience, and the list goes on. That were turned. If it was about making the country great again, these people were setting the new standard. Meanwhile, they got replaced with the Pete Hegseths and the Kristi Noems and the Linda McMahons of the world to be in this position. Dante, man, we always run out of time, which is why it's great to have you on with a little bit more frequency every couple of weeks, because what you have to say is always so powerful. We've got to reconnect to talk about another topic with some of the work that you're doing, because we've got people asking me, how do I get Dante stuff? How do I get Dante stuff? So we're gonna keep that narrative going. But listen, man, thanks for being with us today. Thanks for kind of highlighting some of these points that a lot of people don't want to talk about, but we appreciate what you're doing and being with us for a little bit this morning.
Thank you so much. Please go to DanteKing.com, and if you want to check out the book as well as the Diagnosing Whiteness and Anti-Blackness video series. There's a 10-part episodic video series. Richard, I need your email again.
Richard at WCPT820.com.
Okay.
Cool. All right, man. Good to hear your voice. Have a great rest of the week, Dante. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, tough conversation, guys. You know, and that's there's a number of authors, white and black, that speak to this and how it's affected our country. And, you know, it's a conversation that's tough to have. But right now, when we talk about the mediocrity of what's going on with this administration, you know, it's a conversation that we have to continue to have. This is why I keep asking people to make sure that you are paying attention to what's happening, because it's right there in front of us. The question is, are we going to be bold enough to grab on and continue to fight? We're going to take a quick break. The number, of course, is 773-763-9278. That's the Credo mobile phone and text line. Choose Views. Will be right back.
Chicagoland, are you ready to head up to the northwest suburbs on Sunday, June 1st?
It's the 7th annual family-friendly Buffalo Grove Pride Parade. It all begins at 11 a.m. featuring 100 businesses, organizations, dance teams, musicians, bands, schools, and much more. The parade is geared for the LGBTQ community members and allies of all ages. This year's theme, Pride is Natural, highlights the normalcy of being an LGBTQ family in this time of great distress in our nation.
And this year's Grand Marshals? Well, it's us. Yes, WCPT 820's own me, Scott Duff.
And me, Ellen Miller.
We're the hosts about Chicago. The Buffalo Grove Pride Parade will feature a special tribute to Balloons by Tommy's Lake Rate owner with an incredible display of rainbow balloons.
The Buffalo Grove Pride Parade, the family-friendly Pride Parade filled with magical giveaways for all, is Sunday, June 1st at 11 a.m.
Information and map can be found at pintoprideproject.com. See you there.
This is Tony Moray. I'm an estate planning lawyer who drafts living trusts and wills. Since the election, I've been hearing from my clients, many of them fellow WCPT listeners. And we all wonder, how did this happen and what can we do? The how is, of course, very complicated. My thoughts as regard to what we can do is simple but important. We need to take extra care of those we love. Having an estate plan using either a living trust or will can provide comfort in uncertain times like these. When the progressive values we hold dear are under attack, I feel we must make sure that our personal lives are secure and then work out from there. I've been drafting estate plans for my clients for over 30 years, and I will use all of that experience to help you. Please call me at 847-996-0496. My website is moreylawoffice.com. That's Morey spelled M-O-R-E-E. Again, the phone is 847-996-0496. There is no cost or obligation for our initial discussion. I look forward to speaking with you.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few spotty areas of drizzle at times here for today with cloudy skies, a high in the upper 60s. Winds out of the northeast around 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 20. Then for tonight, a chance for some rain, late cloudy, a low near 54. By Wednesday, a chance for rain showers, cloudy, high of 63 degrees. Then Thursday, a slight chance for rain, late, a high of 71. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 59.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, Progressives, welcome back to the show. 773-763-9278 is our Credo mobile phone and text line. Let's grab a quick call, then we'll go to our guest. Let's go to Steve in the Gold Coast. Steve, thanks for holding, man. Wanted to get your call in real quickly. How you doing this morning?
Oh, not too bad. And I originally called in to talk about the Trump administration and a number of policies, but I wanted to push back a little bit on your previous guest. I mean, I would argue that, one, there's not enough distinction to be made between the various kinds of white people. My parents are first-generation immigrants, and if he thinks that I get the same degree of consideration given my surname and background and so forth as some WASP, I'm sorry, that's just delusional. And secondly, I think we all agree that there are people who get advantages in this country because of who they know. Yes, we all know that's true. But people don't take don't take umbrage at someone who is from Howard University giving another Howard grad a leg up in the same way that they do in terms of someone giving an individual a leg up relative to, their race. So these are important distinctions. I certainly don't want to see someone hired because they are white. But being hired because your parents knew somebody isn't being hired because you're white. It's because your parents knew somebody. And so I think that these are all important distinctions.
Well, they're easy distinctions to make because I agree. And that's one of the reasons why I don't broad brush and say every white person or every anything when it comes to distinctions about behavior. But the thing that you probably can appreciate in your own conversation is you said that you are, and we've had this conversation before on the family meeting as it relates to immigration. What a lot of people don't grab onto, and it's hard for them to grab onto this, Steve, is the path that you are on that was created by people before you wasn't a path that was just created by people that look like you, irrespective of the ethnicity sound of your name. And that's the part that a lot of times is a real nuanced but very, very important part of the conversation. And that's
it is, and that's why we need to recognize that at the founding of this country, unlike what he discussed in a rather broad way, that was intended strictly for white male property holders who were of white Anglo-Saxon Protestant origin. In other words, it wasn't intended to apply to me. If my ancestors had been here at that time, would not have been full citizens in this country. So it's far more nuanced than what he suggested.
Here's the part that becomes challenging for me, and we have a guest, so I'm not gonna make him wait too long. The difference is you get to say that from the position of a man that's viewed in this country as white. You get
today I am.
No. But see, Steve, here's a problem. I'm going to cut you off by intent. You weren't here 200 years ago to not benefit from what you're saying. Others who didn't have quote unquote WASP ancestry got to benefit from. So you're speaking from a history that you didn't experience.
Right, but I've experienced my share of discrimination.
Yeah, but it doesn't count
because of my ethnicity.
But Steve, this is the problem that I always have with this conversation. You will never experience the same discrimination that I experienced.
And I don't contend that I do. But
the fact that you would say or even enter into a conversation that says it's even close to being similar by virtue of the fact that it's discrimination, that's the problem.
No, there's a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy.
In discrimination?
And simply calling, yes, there's a hierarchy because simply lumping all white
there's a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy of discrimination if you're white.
And a hierarchy of privilege in this country when it comes to being white.
But there isn't by comparison, because you have to step out of being white, but you can't but you get to shapeshift inside of being white, which I don't get to do as being black. So you can't tell me there's no, Steve, stop. You can't even tell me there's a comparison. There isn't. And
there isn't a comparison. I'm not arguing there's a comparison. I'm saying that simply lumping all white people together is intellectually dishonest. There's a whole slew there. 100 years ago, you could be
that's
told,
the privilege.
We're not hiring you. You're
that's the
subhuman
privilege.
Because you're Irish.
That's the privilege of being white in America.
That's a privilege of being discriminated against openly
because you get to
no protection?
you get to segment that and break it down and say there's a hierarchy within whiteness in America that allows for discrimination to be measured differently. That's a privilege of being white. It is.
Right. Yes, absolutely. It's a privilege of being white. That's why we need to recognize it.
But that doesn't change the fact that you still have that element of whiteness that you get to carry around.
Right, that's the element that gives you an advantage, but that doesn't negate the disadvantage that certain groups have who are considered white.
But that's the okay. I'm not going to debate you any further on this because I have a guest on, but not because I don't want to debate you on it. Let's be clear. So for anybody that's listening, I have a guest and I've got to get on. I didn't want you to have to wait any longer. So I'm going to end that part there because we can take this up and have a further discussion about it out of respect to my guest.
No, it's worth discussing, certainly.
Believe me, you don't have to tell me it's worth it. I know it's worth it. My point is I don't want to make our guest wait any longer. And out of respect to you.
No, absolutely.
Because I know that you've got a lot to say about this, and I've heard you say it before on the family meeting. So my point is we can come back to this and talk about it again. And, you know, I definitely want to do that, but I'm just out of respect to my guest, I got to shift to that.
No, absolutely. That has to be your
Steve,
agenda.
So put it on your calendar. Call back the course of this week, and we'll enter into this conversation again because I've certainly got a lot more to say about it. But thanks for calling,
Absolutely.
Steve. Let me grab our guest. All right, guys. Boy, the text line just blew up. All right. Jordan Wood has made the decision that he is going to throw his hat in the ring, has already thrown his hat in the ring. He announces his bid to unseat a particular senator that gets discouraged and frustrated and concerned. Y'all know who I'm talking about. That would be Susan Collins. Good morning, Jordan, and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, you got to hear a little bit of. We're not going to throw you into that deep into the pool just yet. We'll let you save your energy for debates that you're going to have as you take on this fight against Senator Susan Collins. But Jordan, as we always like to do, let me introduce you, but let me also give you the floor to talk a little bit about who you are, what made you decide I'm going to do this. It's time. I'm going to bring a new voice to this conversation. Tell us about that, Jordan.
Yeah, of course. So I got into this campaign really after this election is when I decided to do it, because I grew up in a very middle-class, paycheck-to-paycheck family. My mother left the workforce to provide us with childcare. She had to go back to the workforce to provide our family with health insurance. She was a teacher. My dad was a pastor, and the church couldn't afford to cover the family's health insurance. The only reason I was able to go to college was because of need-based student loans. And these programs that are what make life possible for middle-class, lower middle-class families like mine are all under threat in a very severe way. And Susan Collins, who was first elected when I was in second grade in elementary school in Lewiston, has not done anything since I was a child to make these economic hardships better for American families. They're not only the same, they're getting worse, and now under the greatest threat they've ever been in. So I believe our country right now is in a true crisis, and it's a crisis of the future of democracy and the rule of law. But more importantly, the American idea that if you work hard and you tell the truth and you follow the rules and you treat people with respect, you can have the future that you want. I think that is all that's becoming an unrealistic future for so many Americans, and we need to give them hope again that there's a future in this country that they can achieve if they work hard. And that's going to mean new leadership in Congress and in the Senate, people who are willing to fight, who have the courage to fight for the working class people of Maine, but that have the courage to stand up to this authoritarian in the White House.
And that's what you've said time and time again, Jordan, that this is what, and a lot of people that have watched any clips know that Susan Collins has not done, and that's to stand up. She's held this seat since, 97, 98, and chairs a couple of committees. But most important, as it relates to anybody in the country, she's someone that touches the edges around Donald Trump, but doesn't do anything. And she proved that in the first administration. Right. She gave people it was a classic example of I get this wrong all the time, but the Peanuts of series where Charlie Brown's going to kick the football, and every time what's her name takes it away. She's a classic example of that politically. She gets everybody all lathered up thinking, well, I'm going to stand up against into Donald Trump. And in the first administration, time and time again, she didn't do it. She's doing it again now. That is one of the core things that you've been talking about, that she, from a state that is, on a larger level, a blue state, doesn't stand up for her, constituents in that regard, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. And the slogan we have for this campaign when we launched was, "We need courage, not just concern." And that encapsulates for me like what this campaign is about. And that you mentioned a few of these, but there are so many examples in the Trump years especially, but even before that, where she voted against Trump, but only when she was allowed to do so, because it wouldn't stop the nominee from going through or sink any piece of legislation. So it is to me the ultimate cowardice. But what it's done to folks like me in Maine is it gives us hope each time that this is the time she's going to be courageous. this is the time she's going to have her John McCain thumb down moment. This is the time she's going to be like Mitt Romney or Liz Cheney, and it never happens.
Nope.
And she comes from a state, you mentioned Maine's political environment. I mean, this is a state that would truly applaud her for standing up and being courageous. We would have her back, truly.
Yeah.
And she doesn't do it. And we've seen Republicans from states that are tremendously more conservative than Maine who had the courage to do it. And I've just come to the conclusion, like that courage in leadership like that is not something you learn. It is something that is innate to you. And she's not someone who we can trust in the future to lead because we haven't seen it before. It's just not who she is. So I say, Maine has a really rich tradition that we're very proud of. I mean, we're a very small state, but we've sent people to the national level when our country was in severe crisis, like Joshua Chamberlain, Margaret Chase Smith, who has a 75-year anniversary from her speech against Joe McCarthy, which helped bring him down.
Yep.
To Janet Mills in the White House at the start of the year when she just stood up to Trump and she said, "I'll see you in court." And that's the type of, we don't back down to bullies.
Well, I'm sorry, man.
That's what we have.
I played that clip before. That she really made it clear when she said, "I'll see you in court." She wasn't playing around, and that was as a Midwesterner, a Chicago guy. That was so great to hear her say that and to mean it and to have the strength behind. It's a strength to be able to stand behind her convictions, and the state got behind her. And that's, to me, that's kind of what you're saying that Susan Collins lacks. And I love the way you put that. She teases and teases and teases and then goes, "Oh, no, sorry, changed my mind." I don't even think it's a question of her changing her mind. I think she's always known that this is how she's going to vote on a number of things, whether it be for a nominee or whether it be policy. She just plays that game to get people to think that she's actually a moderate when her voting record is not moderate at all. I mean, the percentages don't lie. Proportionately, she's voted with Trump 67. As I was looking at the numbers, I think 67% of the time during his first term. But here's what's really, I think, telling is that she voted with the Republicans. I think it was 70% of the time, 71% of the time, party line. So even if she didn't vote and doesn't vote with Trump, she's voted party line on some things that can't be beneficial to the citizens of Maine. And that's got you really ticked off from what I've read.
And it's hard to keep. Richard, it's hard to keep up with. I mean, she just like 6 weeks ago voted with Republicans to eliminate a CFPB rule that would limit overdraft fees.
Right.
So folks that don't have money in their bank account, low-income poor people, it would raise the cap and is expected to cost $8 billion for low-income people.
Dang.
And all that $8 billion, it all goes to the largest, wealthiest banks in the country. And it's little stuff like that, as somebody who worked his way through high school and college, I remember overdrafting my bank account. I remember that happening to my friends, and you had to borrow some money from your parents or something to get by. Every day your account was in overdraft. You got tagged on more fees. I mean, it was just a racket by the big banks. And she just voted to bring that back, and that is going to hurt poor people in our state. And that's, I mean, that could go on. I don't want to take up all day.
But, here's the point.
That's what it is.
And we're talking with Jordan Wood, who is running for the Senate seat in Maine to unseat Susan Collins, which is something we gotta get behind on a national level, because it's not just that it's for the state of Maine, but it's also for the region and for the rest of the country to capture that seat. And so that's why we're glad to have you on this morning, Jordan, and we will have you on again. But let me ask you a couple of, I guess you could say more personal questions, or ones that are part of your decision making. How is your family handling all this? How are you as a father and as a husband navigating this as you approach this race?
Well, my husband is 100% on board. I mean, when we started thinking seriously about this earlier this year, I said, I'm not going to do this, Jake, if you're not 120% in this with me. It's a team effort, and we make these decisions. We talk it all through together. So we're having fun getting to do this together, I say. And then we have our first daughter. Her name is Ella. She's 4 months old.
Wow.
So I don't think she has any idea what's going on. My hope is that her first memory is my swearing in the Senate when she's 2 years old. But yeah, we're having fun. My parents just retired down the street from us on a farm here in Maine, so they're over at the house every day, helping us with the campaign in different ways, and so it's a family effort. But my dad's a pastor, so I grew up in the church, and the church is also it's a family effort. My mom and me and my siblings were always doing stuff for the church. We were never paid for it. But so it's a similar experience, and we're finding the joy in it.
That's great, and obviously you've got allies in the community and folks that are supporting you, propping you up. I'd tell you,
lots of them.
That's cool. I'll tell you a short little. How do I want to put it? A little snippet. So I'm one of those people that has been blessed and thankful that I've been able to visit and spend at least 3 days in all 50 of our United States. And it wasn't until 2016 that I was able to check the box and be able to say that. And guess what the last state was that allowed me to get that goal done? It was Maine, brother. It was Maine.
It was Maine.
And my wife and I came up, and we had a ball. We stayed in Camden. We had great food. We went up to the northern coast, and we had a great time. So kudos to
that's right by us.
Yeah.
Next time you come, we're in Bristol, which is just down the coastline a little bit from Camden. So stop over.
Yes, I will. Trust me. Here's what I'm hoping is that happens sooner than later, and that it happens with the. Hey, this is the new senator, and we are thankful and blessed to have him as one of our leaders in the country. Jordan, I got to tell you, man, I'm excited for you, and take this the right way, but I'm also proud of you because what you're doing is not easy. It's not going to be easy, but because you have, I believe, a message that folks in the state want to hear, and folks in the country need to hear, that you're going to be able to be successful. We have got to unseat Susan Collins. I don't know her.
Yep.
I don't think I've never gotten any indication that she's a bad person and all the other sort of things we say about people, but she's not a good leader for the state of Maine. So I get into conversations with a lot of my colleagues, folks that call into the show, and the list goes on, that say we need to go after the Democrats. The Democrats aren't getting the job done. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. And that's true in some cases. But there are more harmful Republicans that are not doing things and are doing things to hurt their community, their state, and the nation at large. And that's why I'm so proud of you saying, you know what, I'm going to set my target on, I'm going to set my focus on targeting Susan Collins to remove her to help change the course of the country. And that's something that I hope you're proud of.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And if folks want to learn more, electjordan.com is our website and has lots more information up there, my policy position, what the campaign is doing, and how people can help.
Well, I'll ask you to come back and be on the show with us again. We want to be an ally and a resource to help you in this messaging and do what we can to be in your corner. So I'm going to get you to commit right now to come back again and again.
You got it.
All right,
you got it.
Jordan Wood, y'all, running for Senate in the state of Maine, and we look forward to being a source and a partner to help you get that job done. Thank you, Jordan, for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Richard, and hello to everyone in Chicago.
Right on. Be well. Stay safe and have a great week, Jordan. We'll talk with you soon, okay?
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Great. Yep, bye.
Hey, man, this is what I was talking about when I said, we have to make sure our Democratic elected officials are doing the work and doing a better job. But this is where the rubber meets the road. We remove the Susan Collins of the world, and we remove the Lisa Murkowskis who are afraid from that clip that we played a few weeks ago. We get them out and we get the folks in like the Jordans. How about we replace some young Democrats? How about we replace the Republicans that aren't getting the job done, Henry, with some young Republicans? How about if we replace the Republicans that are not getting the job done with some young Democrats in those areas? I mean, she's held that seat since 1997. We need more of our voices talking about what she's not getting done, as well as where we want to help strengthen our Democratic elected officials. There you go. Let's go to a quick call. Let's go to Dawn real quickly. Hey, Dawn, welcome to Choose Views.
Hi. I was just calling. I heard what you were saying yesterday with that man about the white privilege, and I am white, and they don't get it. They don't. I can talk to. I have certain ones that I like. A little bit of my family is certain people, but when you talk to somebody else, they just don't get it. It is so different that we don't have to leave the house scared, wondering who's watching us, wondering if they're watching us in the store, like being watched all the time. And sometimes I don't know how you get through to them, because it's almost like they don't have that empathetic button, or they don't, and they get offended.
Yeah.
How dare you say that I have white privilege? I mean, and there's so many of them that are so defensive and upset as soon as you say that one. And it's almost like at times I feel like it almost like turns them off. They're like, I'm done.
Well, Dawn, can I, first of all, thank you for calling and thanks for your contribution. It's not easy to call a radio show, so I appreciate you doing that. But here's the thing that I want to say. I am not the dude running around saying I hate white people and white people are bad. I've never said that. That's not the case. It's just
no, that's not. But to have them, to have them the plight of people of different ethnic origins.
There's a reason Dante King exists. There's a reason that people like Dr. Robin, why did I just draw a blank on her name? She's written the book on white fragility, and I'm drawing a blank. There's a reason that they've written that, because they've stepped outside of themselves. And of course, Dante is African American, and Dr. Robin's not. She's white American. The point is, it's a particular group. It's about identifying that these are real issues, and it does. Right. It frustrates a lot of people, probably like you, when you hear someone who is one generation in the country from immigration saying that there's a hierarchy of racism in the United States of America. Racism is racism, y'all. And so I know it frustrates someone like you, Dawn, so I didn't mean to interrupt you. I know I appreciate you.
No, and I could see him get defensive, and I don't know how you really combat that when you have that discussion, because I think that they are just so, white white privilege, what are you talking, and when I talk to people where I'm from, I've put things up and they're so offended. They're so upset. They're so, how dare you say that?
The author I was thinking of is Dr. Robin DiAngelo. She's written the book White Fragility. And it's a very good read on that topic. To your point, Dawn, to your point is probably more than anything else. How are you doing today? How was your Memorial Day weekend? Did you have a reasonably good time?
I did. It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. Spent time with my family and my parents, especially my parents and my father, who is a veteran. So, it was wonderful. So I hope you had a wonderful one too.
We did. We did. Henry and I were talking about some things that he and some of his colleagues did. So it was nice that the folks that are in our respective universes were able to have a good weekend. Dawn, it's always good to hear your voice. I haven't heard from you in a long time. But
and I listen to you every morning. And Richard, like the way you were going, I'm scared. I'm frightened, actually, and I don't feel like some of the other some other people I've woken up to what is truly happening. And it's frightening.
Well, Dawn, I'm doing my best to be encouraging and include and make us to let us know that we have each other. I know that sounds for some people it sounds kind of pie in the sky, but that's what they're trying to tear apart. Is that we have each other. That's one of the things that they're trying hard as hell to do is to tear us apart. We can't let that happen. We cannot allow that to happen. Dawn, it's always great to hear you. Glad you're well, and just thank you so much for your contribution to the show. We'll talk with you soon.
Thank you.
All right, Dawn, have a great day.
Bye. You too.
Guys, we ran right up on it. Henry's looking at me like, dude, shut up. All right, Progressives, thanks for being with us this morning. We always appreciate your support. Take a deep breath, make your life count. We will see you tomorrow.
Hi, my dad founded Chicago Community Acupuncture.
My dad did too.
That's because we're sisters.
Yeah, but it's true.
You know, acupuncture has helped billions of people, but some people are still afraid of it.
Why?
They're afraid it'll hurt, or that it won't do anything to help them.
That's silly. We get acupuncture all the time, and it's like less than a mosquito bite. And everyone knows that acupuncture can help a bunch of different problems.
Not everyone knows that.
Someone should tell them.
I think you just did.
So if you'd like to experience top-quality acupuncture at half the price of other places, come visit us at Chicago Community Acupuncture at Milwaukee, Devine, and Nagel. Call 773-853-0920, 773-853-0920, or our website, ChiCom